Hey, good morning. This is Jeff Horrock from the National Weather Service office here in Wakefield. Since yesterday was a holiday, we have the briefing coming out here today on Tuesday, October 15th. And we'll talk about the weather this week and going in a little bit into this weekend and early next week about what's going on here across the region. Just to really to highlight the bullets here, I won't read through all these things, but basically, dry and seasonally cool for the rest of this week. Maybe a little bit of frost and freeze inland. I'll have to highlight that. Some uncertainty regarding late Wednesday into Thursday. I'll make sure to show that. And on the marine side of the house, winds are going to be going up and down here a little bit, coming up at about 20, 25 knots. So maybe some gusts to 30 here the next couple of days, and then maybe a decreasing trend in the wind for the weekend. Kind of showing some of the low temperatures this morning from across the region. If they'll come back up, there you go. Actually had a nice little cool spot here, inland areas across Tidewater, even getting up into parts of South Central Virginia, getting up here towards Petersburg. We had some really some upper 30s, which was pretty interesting. Where other areas were still kind of hanging in the low to mid 40s, and we have a few 30-degree readings here where you expect in the mountains and up in the valleys. So some interesting temperatures here. Salisbury hit 36, even inland here in Windsor hit about 39, 38 there in Ahoskie. So it's really interesting temperatures here across the region this morning. Going to be a little bit of a seasonably cool spell. So we'll talk about what's going to happen here the next few days. Looking at the satellite picture, I mean, it's really dry. We have a little bit of a front to our north. It's a bit just continued dryness, got some high cirrus streaking across parts of the west, but generally things are pretty clear, pretty dry. This cloud cover that's kind of moving into the western part of the state could impact, the freeze and the frost. Maybe we're kind of have to keep an eye on that. If we can keep some cloud cover going, in parts of the western part of the states in the Piedmont, that might mitigate the potential for some frost and freeze, but we'll see. It is a pretty dry air mass over us with some cool air, so still some potential for frost freeze in the Piedmont and the mountains. And in fact, mentioning that, we do have freeze warnings in effect there, mainly for the mountains in the western part of the state. And you see some frost advisories further north. We're holding off on any frost advisories right now in our forecast area, mainly because we're trying to work through the cloud cover. Is there going to be enough cloud cover to keep frost from forming? Better chance for frost later on this week that you'll actually see with the temperature forecast here in a few minutes. So what's going on weather-wise this week? Well, we had a really strong cold front push through. That's why it was so windy here the last Sunday, Monday. Really strong high pressure building down in the middle part of the country. And you can see here for midweek, it settles right in across the Ohio River Valley. Oh, I'm going to cancel that. It settles right in across the Ohio River Valley. It just sets right up. And so it's going to bring us some continued dry weather and some continued, below normal temperatures. This little area of low pressure along the coast that you see kind of forming, that's the big question mark right now. Some models are trending now where they're trying to develop this little area of low pressure here closer to the Carolinas and still tracking it kind of northeast away from the coast. But the trend has been to bring it a little bit closer in, especially for, I'd say, late Wednesday into Thursday. And that could impact our weather a little bit. So we'll kind of talk about what may happen here Wednesday, Thursday, if that system does come a little bit closer to the coast. But by the time we get into late week, getting into Friday, basically the high pressure really building in, very strong highs. Winds are going to be decreasing by Friday. Still, seasonable temperatures starting to maybe get a little bit of a warming trend for the weekend, but still below normal. And then for the weekend, again, that high pressure really kind of holding on. So our big question mark right now is kind of what happens with this quick little passing coastal low here late Wednesday into Thursday. So as of right now, this is the rainfall total that takes us through the next 72 hours, takes us through Friday morning. And really not expecting much rainfall anywhere. We do have this, tenth of an inch maybe possible in some areas across Southeast Virginia, maybe going up Northeast North Carolina here up to Eastern Shore. We'll see how that plays out. Here's the actual statewide view for chances of precipitation. So again, maybe a few little sprinkles here out in the west as the upper level system drops down later on, I'd say this evening into tomorrow. And then along the coast, this is probably more geared for us, potentially maybe getting into Wednesday night and into Thursday. So we'll see what happens. This is showing you some of the model blends here going out into, this is actually showing you Thursday at about 8 a.m. So this is projection of potential rainfall that you see here. And so it's showing you maybe most of the rainfall being offshore. This is with that area of low pressure showing about maybe up to an inch of rain for 24-hour rainfall totals. And this has come Thursday morning, where along the coast, Southeast Virginia, maybe you've gotten a quarter inch of rain, and you kind of step this ahead into Thursday afternoon. And even if that low looks like it comes a little closer to the coast, it just may mean a little bit more precipitation potential for maybe some of our Bay counties. Maybe the Eastern Shore gets a little bit a better chance of rain, and especially Southeast Virginia, Northeast North Carolina. We don't really have that in the forecast as of yet. The models just kind of started trending this way here in the last few runs. So we'll see what happens. That's Thursday afternoon. There's Thursday evening. And then by the time you get into about, basically early Friday morning, late Thursday night, the rainfall is really shifting offshore. We're looking at 24-hour total. So we will see what happens. If that low can form a little bit closer, maybe we get some better chances of precipitation closer to the coast there Wednesday night, and especially Thursday. And if that's the case, we may have to bump up these rainfall totals just a little bit to kind of capture that for Thursday. Right now, we're not really forecasting that, but if the trend continues, we'll have to maybe kind of update our forecast later today and then maybe even early Wednesday to kind of capture that potential rain, especially along the coast there for Thursday. So we'll see how that plays out. Temperature-wise, this is what we've been talking about. These are really below normal temperatures, really for everybody. These are the high temperatures, and you see basically below normal temperatures. And then we start warming back up into the 70s, maybe even mid 70s for the weekend, getting into especially Saturday and then Sunday and Monday. So below normal, at least through I'd say about Friday, and then we get a little bit of a warming trend later this weekend as that high pressure builds down and kind of sits right over us. We'll start to see the temperatures maybe starting to build back a little bit. Looking at the overnight lows, definitely see some cool lows here in Farmville, maybe upper 30s the next couple of nights. Thursday, we'll see what happens if we really get down to 34. It's going to depend upon the cloud cover, but I think Friday morning, right now we're thinking the late Thursday, maybe into Friday, maybe our best chance for some patchy frost, so we'll have to watch that. But for anybody with sensitive plants, just kind of keep an eye on these lows. You see Bowling Green here getting into the mid 30s. Anytime you start to see mid 30s, you got to be on the lookout for maybe some patchy frost. So definitely going to see a few nights there where we could potentially see some patchy frost. So just something to be aware of there for Thursday morning, and again Friday morning. I'm watching some of these low temperatures. Again, look at the chance of rain. We could see a few little passing sprinkles. You see some very, very, very low chances of rain late tonight, like maybe 20%, 10%, and even until a little bit tomorrow. That's because the upper level system is going to be dropping down across us, maybe squeezing a few little sprinkles out, but nothing too exciting. It's this Thursday chance of precipitation. We'll have to watch this. So again, areas near the bay, areas along the coast, Northeast North Carolina, we may end up having to increase these rain chances a little bit on Thursday. Again, we're not forecasting it yet, but again, if that trend continues, we may be bumping up these chances of precipitation here for Thursday just a little bit. But generally, again, not much precipitation expected, in the bigger picture. So shifting gears into the marine side, it has been breezy off and on here for a while, especially with the fronts as they've been kind of surging down here. It's been a little bit breezy, last night and early this morning. Small craft advisory conditions, kind of expected to continue here over especially the bay and the coastal waters here for a little while. And in fact, you start to see some low probability of gale conditions now starting to show up, mainly offshore. And this is because of that, the models start to develop that little low pressure system a little closer to the coast. We are seeing some low probabilities of gales just offshore. So we'll see if these probabilities increase any, and they maybe creep a little bit closer to the coast. But right now, we're not expecting gale conditions, just some really good, solid small craft conditions here for the next few days. And kind of running it down, day by day, here in the orange, we're expecting, again, those winds of about 20, 25 knots on the bay today. And then by the time we get into later tonight and into tomorrow, pretty much we're solid. Solid 20, 25 knots everywhere. And that persists into Thursday, with that solid 20, 25 knots. Winds do decrease a little bit here for Friday. You start to see a little bit of a decrease in the marine threat. And then for Saturday, it does look like, especially on the bay and the coastal waters, late Friday night and then into Saturday, winds will be decreasing and conditions will be a bit better. So it's good. We got to get through now and really through about, I'd say, Friday morning before the winds really start kind of improving a little bit. So these are our peak winds that we're expecting here, through Friday on the bay and the coastal waters. So some pretty good wind gusts. Maybe getting up close to 30 knots here, and especially you notice these higher winds now a little bit further offshore with the brighter green. Again, that's that low pressure system that's going to be developing off the coast, and so we are going to see some stronger winds, maybe just offshore, getting up to maybe that little more than 30 knots. But for most of us, upper 20s to around 30 knots should be our peak winds for Wednesday into Thursday. Even though the waves may come down a little bit here before that, it will build right back up to 4 feet on the bay, and then really about, I'd say anywhere from 4 to 6 feet on the coastal waters. So we'll have more small craft advisories being posted for the coastal waters here before too long. Kind of breaking down the winds. This is the sustained winds that I'm actually showing here, so not the gust. And so you see a little bit lighter wind today. I get a little bit of a break with the northwest wind around maybe 10 to 15 knots. Notice how that north wind does start to kind of increase, especially later in the day tomorrow, starting to get sustained around 15 to 20 knots. That means gusts will probably be around 25 knots tomorrow. And then by the time we get into Wednesday night into Thursday, we're going to be sustaining around 20 knots, maybe even sustaining at 25 knots at times. And this is when we're going to expect maybe a few gusts getting up there close to maybe 30 knots or so. And you can kind of see that wind kind of persist out of the north all the way through Thursday. Things improve a little bit on Friday, but we're still talking about a north wind, probably around 15 knots, gust to 20. Because remember, these are sustained winds here. So the gusts will probably be about 20 knots or so even on Friday. But the winds do decrease. You see more decreasing wind later in the day. And Saturday, it's a northeast wind, which can still be kind of a rough wind, generally around 10 knots. Offshore maybe about 10 to 15 knots. So maybe some gusts there Saturday, getting just shy of 20 knots. So maybe a little bit better conditions on parts of the inland rivers and parts of the bay on Saturday. But still that northeast wind might keep things a bit uncomfortable, especially for recreational boaters. And then by Sunday, the winds decrease quite a bit. That's probably our best day as far as the coastal waters on the bay and the bay. But definitely this windy period here, winds pick up later this evening and really go all the way through Thursday, and even bleeding a little bit into Friday. With the north winds, and we are in kind of an astronomical tide, we did get some good break from the tides. In fact, we started seeing a little bit of low water this past weekend, which was probably a good thing because the astronomical tide is going to be build back up again. And with that north wind, we might be building back into some elevated tides. Nothing that's going to be a big issue. Maybe some real nuisance tidal flooding here come Thursday. This wouldn't be happening until about Thursday. So a few spots might start to see the tides coming back up, maybe causing some real nuisance tidal flooding in areas right along the waterfront. But right now, we don't even have any locations reaching minor flooding. So just some elevated water levels coming for Thursday with that north wind kind of persisting for so long, combined with the astronomical high tides. So again, nothing real significant. You just might notice the tides rebounding compared to the low water that we had across areas this past weekend. Of course, we got this tropical system out there. It's not tropical yet. There's this 40 to 60% probability of development. It's been on the map here from the Hurricane Center actually for a while. Looking at a lot of the model projections, if anything does develop, it looks like it's going to stay way down to the south because we're going to have really strong high pressure over us for the most part. So it's going to act like a wall, and it's just going to block anything in the tropics from trying to come up here. So the main thing we're going to be watching is a non-tropical low pressure system that's going to develop off the Carolinas again Wednesday and then track off the coast here Thursday. So there, even though it's not on the map here, there could be a little bit of a low form up here off the Carolinas and track near us. But again, that's a non-tropical system, very typical, weak nor'easter kind of thing, typical fall type of a low pressure system forming off the coast. That's not going to cause too much of an impact. So tropical wise, we look pretty good. So looking ahead, way out 8 to 14 day outlook, it does look like temperatures are going to rebound. And so there's pretty good confidence that once we get through this current, cooler than normal spell, once we get into later, 8 to 14 days out, temperatures are going to rebound, and there's a pretty good signal that we'll be going back above normal temperatures. So maybe some seasonably warm conditions, and unfortunately, that's also going to also bring some below normal precipitation as well. So we've been dry for a while. It looks like on average, we're going to continue to be pretty dry. So we got to keep an eye out for that. The drought conditions are slowly starting to creep back, just some abnormally dry conditions. We do have some D1 there starting to get up into Salisbury. So we'll just have to watch. The western part of the state in the mountains has a little bit of that D0 abnormally dry. So nothing of a serious concern yet. But if you continue to stay dry for too long, we're going to have to be careful, and also going to have to maybe watch some of the fire danger condition. A lot of our fine fuels are getting pretty dry. So if we get some really windy days with really low humidities, we may have to start watching out for some fire danger here as we get through these fall months. So we'll watch that. Otherwise, that is the summary for this week. And